And all right, looks like we're recording. All right, Janet, why don't you take it away?
Okay, so again, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part with all of you. We're going to talk about COVID-19 and landlords. So I think Jen and I talked earlier, and this is like the number one questions a lot of people have is, should I reach out to my tenants? And the answer is no.
Why do you say that?
Here's why. There's three things really that come into effect with this. I have it down as number 3, but it really should have been number 1. Safety risks. You do not want to be at this time knocking on people's doors saying, hey, when is rent going to be due? Are you going to have rent? Do not approach tenants at this time. And here's why. We're going up to number 1, the landlord groups. There's a lot of landlord groups that are out there currently that are not landlords, they're tenant activists. And unfortunately, you know, they're running with it. They're trying to do tenant rent strikes. I haven't seen it so much in Ventura County, but in LA, it's really strong. So the idea is you want to do what you can for your tenants legally that is good for you as well as for them. So I'm not ever proactive strike ever when it comes to rental strikes, but these folks here will get your name, they'll get your address, you'll get mail, you'll get emails, you'll get phone calls. It is just not worth it to put out on any social media. I have social media down here. Don't put out on any social media sites, even on, if you have a Facebook post, do not do it about, you know, I'm a landlord and, you know, this isn't right. You just sort of kind of have to keep everything to yourself. Even as a company, we are doing the same thing because we have seen companies ruined in the last few weeks, just trying to help out tenants. Not saying anything about, I need my rent, but hey, if rent is due and you don't have a problem, here are some resources. And those have gone viral. And it's just, he did it out of wanting to help and it backfired. Sure. So just be careful out there. And then the other question is, what money is out there for them to get help, for our tenants to get help? There are resources, but you are not the resource contact for them.
Okay.
Here's why. Should you give a resource that is no longer available and they were banking on it, they could say, you told me and it didn't happen, and now you're at fault for why they didn't pay their rent. So if someone says to you, hey, I don't have the money for rent, let them know. We're going to go through what the laws are in regards to that. However, is there money out there for them to get help? Currently, we are seeing that there is resources. It's first come, first serve, but they need to find them. There's the help for the homelessness, to stay out of homelessness in Ventura County. There's your Salvation Army, there's churches, there are different places they can go, but they have to be their own resource factor. So does anyone have any questions about that? Because that's a huge one right there.
Thank you. Those are all really good points. Does anybody want to type anything in the chat room? Does anybody have any questions on this topic? I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, then we're going to get into legislation. And I know legislation's hard or heavy but
yeah, so I appreciate you bringing up the current legislation, because I think I had this conversation with you. And I asked you myself, should we have tenants? And I know what their jobs are. And I know a couple of them are going to have trouble making rent this month and next month. So that was my first question to you a couple of weeks ago. But even since then, I think laws have changed. So I really appreciate you highlighting
several times. Yeah, they've changed several times. In fact, the advice we were giving out on Thursday was negated on Friday. So it's constantly, so this is information as of today.
Okay, fantastic.
It may not be the same next week, but as of today, this is what we have.
Okay, so one really quick, one viewer asked just to clarify, so can we suggest to figure out where they can go for financial help or not?
No. You can tell them that there is, as far as you know, there is financial help out there for them, but they would need to do their own resource and digging, because depending on if they're like a server or a bartender, there's specific funding for that.
Okay.
If they're a teacher, there's specific funding for that. You know, and teachers are still getting paid from what I understand, from certain school districts I know out here, they're still getting paid because they're doing their teaching by Zoom and they're working all that out.
Sure.
So know that. Should you say there's help and you should pay your rent, that's going to be that's a big no-no. You can't say that, but you can say, if they ask you, you can advise. But do you advise before asking the question? No. Don't, you are not a source of expertise for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about what we know for sure. The laws are changing, sometimes several times daily. We're constantly reading the laws daily. As a management company, we're constantly reading the laws daily to keep up with state, city, and federal ordinances. And we highly recommend you do the same thing. If you do not have a professional management firm, you have to keep up with the daily laws and do not count on the news. Please don't. Go to your city's website, county websites, state websites, and read the actual law, because right now the news is covering a snippet of it.
Okay.
We want you to know what once you get past all the whereases, which is a whole page, you get into the meat and potatoes of what you're going to need. And that's what's really important. So you can find all the orders on your city's websites, county websites.
And that's actually one of the questions here in the chat room is, do you have a link to share from the state of California that has the current or ever-changing owner-tenant status and information? So
I do. I actually emailed it to Jana earlier so that she can email it out to all of you.
okay.
We're going to go over it, but I'm doing high level. I'm not doing a deep dive, but you can actually, you'll see if it's something that I say it's specific, it's listed in the slides specifically, just the way they did it. And it's actually not bad. It's 3 pages. Page one is all your whereases. Page 2 is, once you go to, it is hereby ordered that. 1 page is of that, and then the rest is the signatures.
Okay. Great.
So it's really 1 page, and it's not horrible. It's actually really pretty. I thought it was one of the better ones I've seen for landlords.
Yeah, I read it before we started the meeting, and it was pretty fair and pretty easy to read. So
right. Now, different counties and different cities have different laws. So keep that in mind if you do not just have rental property here in Ventura County.
Okay, fantastic.
All right. So the newest California law. This is universally regarding tenants and not financials.
So what does that mean by not financials?
So the federal is covering your financials, your mortgages.
Okay.
This does not cover your mortgages. This is just talking about your tenants and what you can and can't do with your tenants.
Okay.
Okay. So your tenant, if your tenant has paid all their rent that is due and is not currently behind in rent, this kicks in for them.
Okay.
Should your tenant not have paid rent prior to March 27th, then this does not apply with them and you can go on with your eviction.
Okay, thank you.
So the tenant has 7 days from the date the rent is due to notify you that they will not be paying April's rent. So what that means is they can tell you within 7 days, but if they tell you in 8 or 9 days, and I have this on another side as well, be a little bit lax with that. Your goal is to get your rent paid. So here's your 3 reasons why that they can notify you of. The tenant was unable to work due to either themselves or their family member being sick, due to the sickness, having sickness, or COVID-19 specifically stated out. The tenant experienced a layoff, loss of hours, or other income reduction due to COVID-19, or the emergency that's set in state, or a government response. And C, the tenant needed to miss work due to care of a child whose school was closed due to COVID-19.
Okay.
Okay. So those are the 3 reasons. So if they say, well, I'm still employed, but you need to move my rent, is not a reason. They are receiving, you can't ask them if they're receiving unemployment. You can just, they just have to give you this, right? And they have to give you verifiable documentation. And what that is either a termination notice, payroll checks, pay stubs, bank statements, medical bills, or signed letters from an employer or a supervisor explaining the tenant's changed financial circumstances to support the tenant's assertion of the inability to pay. For the California mandate, the tenant is not required to provide evidence at the time they say they are affected. That's a huge one. This is also going to become a gray area. The documentation may be provided to the landlord no later than the time upon payment of back due rent. That's where your gray area comes into effect. And here's why it does. It gives the tenants, so we talked about this. If the tenant gives notice on the 8th or 9th saying, I can't afford to make this payment, there are different things you can do, and we're going to discuss them next. But the idea is to constantly get them into a payment plan. They have to, the one thing you have to realize is that come the time when all the moratoriums are over, rent is due. Mm. So if someone has not paid rent along the way, now they have 4 months of rent to have to pay, 3 months of whatever they haven't paid in rent, right? Now they have to pay it up to date. They're also going to have their utilities the same way. Everyone's putting everything on hold, but it's not for forever. Right. And the county of Ventura has not put into any rules, any payment plans as of yet. The lawsuits and litigations.
So is that a conversation to have with your tenant of here's the way the law is right now, that we can buy you some time, but it will be due at the end of that time?
Yes. I would say you want to put it into your agreement.
Okay.
We're going to talk about forms and agreements. Do you want to have a conversation to get them to pay you as much money as they can possibly pay now?
Okay.
Because they're going to get stuck later on.
Sure.
And you don't want that. If you come at them like, I'm here to help you, and the help area is, I don't want to go into eviction with you. I've enjoyed having you as a tenant, and this is what's going to keep us out of this. Let's work together so that we can keep you out of being evicted.
Okay.
But they also have to have that conversation of, unfortunately, you can't bankroll someone either. So lawsuits and litigations, we don't know what this is going to look like upon them giving you notice. Is it at the time of they start giving you payback of the rent? If they pay on April, if they break it up into several payments, is it the first payment? We don't know. So lawsuits and litigations is a huge gray area because we don't know what's going to be coming at us until it happens. So the court opens up and we know again what's going to be happening. And then how aggressive do you want to be as a landlord? Some people are very aggressive. They want their money. They want it now. They wanted it on the 20th or 25th of this month and started knocking on doors. We saw it. We saw, we've seen landlords go to jail over it. Not to jail, but they got arrested to get off the property because you don't have the right. You don't have the right to be knocking on doors, and you don't want to be that way. Just don't as a landlord. It's not just the best practices, but now you've put the tenant on the defense.
Sure.
We don't want to do that. As a landlord, you don't want to do that, not during this time, because they do have a nice little wait period, and you don't want to have to go into eviction afterwards. So just be mindful of that. I guess that would be the best bet on that one.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the truth is eviction is expensive. It's not somewhere anybody wants to go, either as a human or financially.
Right. I used to tell people, if you're going into eviction, you need to understand it's for the rest of your life, because you cannot rent. It's not, people are like, well, eviction will stay for 7 years. That eviction always pops up 7 years later. And the major rule upon renters is, if you've had an eviction, we're not renting to you. We have the right to disqualify somebody for ever having an eviction. So it's really hard to get past an eviction.
Yeah, no, that's good advice.
So let's talk about federal law for just a second. So due to the CARES Act that was effective on 3/27, there is a 120-day eviction moratorium for non-payment of rent incurred through the 120-day period. Now, here's where this goes into effect. It's really for those properties that have mortgages. So that's the big thing, is that we always have to defer to the strictest law, whether it's local, state, or federal. So in California, the stricter law prohibiting upfront evidence is effective through May 31 of 2020 currently. So they do have a hold off on rent, but they do have to pay it. So there's different things that are covered by different ways your house is financed.
So if I'm understanding, right now they have, the stricter law is you can have, a tenant can have relief up through May 31, 2020.
No. The stricter law is they have the 120-day eviction.
Okay.
They have a hold of 120 days.
Okay.
However, to provide all the information that is going to be, to give you the paperwork to
Got it.
say it was affected, it's still going to be May 31st.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what they're saying. The upfront evidence is stricter with California. Of course, you can always still file evictions for major breaches of lease not tied to rent payment or for an unpaid rent prior to 327 if your courts are taking tenant and the landlord civil cases.
Okay, so thank you for answering that. I didn't even get a chance to ask, but one of the questions on the chat room earlier was, what if your tenant is behind already before all of this started? So if I'm understanding correctly, if they were behind already, you don't lose your rights to eviction for the prior reasons. You don't
Right.
lose your rights to go after them for rent or to move.
Yeah, and in that case, you would have given a 3-day pay or quit notice.
Okay.
After 5 days, you could have filed on them. So the question would be, did you already file on them? If you haven't filed on them, then you would want to make sure that you get your file in if the courts are open for the civil case.
Okay.
If they're open, you want to get in line first. That's going to be the thing. Who gets in line first is going to be the sooner your case is held off on for eviction.
Okay.
Okay. So the federal law for mortgages, this has changed several times, and it's currently only on government-backed loans. If you can show that you're affected by COVID-19, such as showing reduced rental income, you may be eligible for up to 6-month mortgage deferment. And the mortgage companies may put payments to the back of the loan, and it's not clear if it will be spread evenly or if there will be a balloon payment.
So I've already had a couple of clients calling their mortgage companies, and specifically Wells Fargo. So we haven't gotten into other companies yet. And at the moment they were given 90 days. And the way it seems to be explained is sort of like the rent is going to be due in 4 months. So the mortgage is going to be due in 3 months. And all of it, you don't stop paying interest, you just accrue. The relief that they were giving, though, is they weren't going to charge late fees, and they will not be hitting your credit with a mortgage late. So that's definitely one of the benefits. So if you do have a mortgage on your rental property, there potentially will be some relief for you, at least temporary.
Yeah, but if you can make some sort of a payment, make the payment. That's just like the renters. If you can pay your mortgage, any portion of your mortgage, pay your mortgage, just so that you don't have that happen to you. The key elements of the federal rules, is it federally backed? So you want to watch government websites that show your mortgages on the list. Check with your mortgage company, and because you have to understand your tenants are going to check too.
Sure.
Oh, you're on the list. I don't have to pay, or this is what it says, and they're going to do everything for you you're not doing for us. Well, if your loan has been sold off, if you're non-conventional, if you're a hard money loan, if your house is paid off, this is not part of your rules.
Sure.
So mortgages that are federally insured, guaranteed, subsidized, etc., must offer deferment. Non-conforming loans, such as private loans, hard money, and other types are up to the lender. This also applies to whether the tenants have the 120-day eviction moratorium. If your mortgage is not covered by the Federal CARES Act, then your tenants are not eligible for the federal eviction moratorium. So so it depends on your mortgage whether you fall into this class or not.
Okay. So one of the viewers asked about the local cities and what sort of moratoriums they have on evictions. We know that the city of Camarillo has a statement out regarding rental evictions, that they've put a stop to them temporarily. Do you know offhand, or have you been informed yet if Ventura, Oxnard, Ventura, Oxnard, Ojai, or Santa Barbara have any restrictions yet?
I've been waiting for something to come down through Ventura. Oxnard is very, very quiet. With
Okay.
everything, they've been super quiet. And I don't really know why they've been like that, but they've been pretty quiet on this front. The city of Ventura has been more vocal on different things that the mayor would like to have seen done, but I've not seen anything come down through yet.
And I believe there's a town hall meeting tonight with the city council that will be aired online. So if any of the viewers want to link to that, I believe I have that email if you wanted to watch city council talk tonight.
Yeah, and city council for Oxnard is on Tuesday evenings.
Okay.
6. And that's broadcast as well. I think that's when we're really going to find out what's happening, because I'm sure behind the scenes, there's a lot of moving parts. They have just not come out with what their moving parts are. And a lot of people are actually looking towards the state, because the state one was pretty fair. So they may have just say, we're going to step out of it for right now, because the state is pretty strong. And most people are going to be covered by a government-backed mortgage. I think that's the other part that they're looking at.
Okay.
Because it doesn't count, this whole federal does not count if you are not. So, did I jump ahead?
No.
No, okay. So best practices, should someone come to you and say, hey, I cannot pay, get it in writing and retain it for your records. Always everything in writing. Have them fill out a form for more details. You can do that as well. We do not have a fillable form for you. Normally, if I could, I would, but there's so many moving parts, and we are not an attorney. We're not a legal firm. So we do highlight, see an attorney for that. And the objective is always to find out how you can work out getting rent paid while working with the tenant. Just really work with your tenant.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's a kinder, gentler, softer way to have this conversation. And I'm sure most are on edge, especially if they are a server or whatnot. And unemployment is pretty skinny of what we're able to collect as a worker that's out of work. So I think it's, as Janet has said, it's more of a collaborative effort to get a payment plan in place and realize that we're all in this together.
And keep in mind that there are people out there that have put out on the internet, hey, just send your this is why one that I saw that I just sort of was like, made me crazy. Right, here's a letter, it's a form letter telling your landlord you will not be paying for them because you can't afford it due to COVID-19, and that they should put your payment to the end of the lease. Do not do any of the above. And don't get angry about it. Because when I reached out to the person, I said, why would you put that out there? Because it's really bad information for the tenant, for the landlord. It's bad information. And she said, well, people are coming to me saying they can't afford their rent. And as an influencer, I wanted to let them know they have this option. Wow. And I said, what option that was is you put a landlord on the defense, and now they're mad. Yeah. They're not going to work with you. So know that if you do get a crazy letter, a crazy form letter, don't take it to heart. Pick up the phone, have the conversation. Remember, they may not know any better.
True.
Right? Because they're getting, a lot of people are getting all their facts off of Facebook, because,
Oh, and they're in fear. They're in scarcity and they're in fear right now. So, and who knows what their personal situation is. And the truth is, most of America doesn't have a lot of savings. So this is definitely a fearful time for many.
And keep in mind, a good tenant's always going to be a good tenant. A bad tenant's always going to be bad, and a good tenant's always going to be good. So if you've always had a good tenant and they can't pay now, they are more likely to not only work with you, but try really hard to get that payment in. Like they're going to be the ones stressing about it. If you had a bad tenant, and they've always been a bad tenant, they're going to be the ones coming up with the crazy letters. Sure. They're going to try to force whatever they can to try to get out paying rent. So with that said, keep that in mind. If you have a good tenant and all of a sudden you get a crazy letter from them, it's a fear. They're coming from a place of fear, not from a place of, I really want to get one over on this person.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Then what should be on my form? Again, we are not attorneys. Get a legal draft like this. Please see your attorney. And please make sure all agreements are in writing yet again. So here's the type of information you would want to have on a form. Are you affected by COVID-19? When did it start? How long do you anticipate it to continue? And what are you requesting at this time? Put it in their court. Do not come at them with, we would like to give you $500 off this time. They might not be requesting that.
Right.
Let them request what their need is, not what you think their need is, because that could actually get you in more issues than no good deed goes unpunished is the saying. To just
That's absolutely true. And I had this experience, and it turned out to be a good one during the Thomas fire. My husband and I have a rental property in Ojai, and it was so smoky that the tenants needed to leave and went elsewhere. And of course, the city was asking people to evacuate. So they did. They went further north. But of course, it was expensive, and they weren't working. So they said, can you help us in some way? And we ended up writing them a modest check to at least help cover some of their expenses. So it was good. It was a good open conversation. It wasn't something where we were telling them what to do or they were telling us what to do. It was, we would love some help. Can you help us?
Which is wonderful. I love hearing that. Is it going? Here we go. There we go. Keep in mind, your agreement should have some sort of statement along the following lines. This is should end your statement. Any payment plan does not negate your responsibility to pay rent in full or change the lease agreement. It is only an agreement to not file an eviction as long as repayment terms are met.
Would you read that one more time?
Any payment plan does not negate your responsibility to pay rent in full or change the lease agreement. It's only an agreement to not file an eviction as long as repayment terms are met.
So I think this is a really important one. Something you've taught me since we've known each other is when you take less rent than normal, you've now essentially created a new rental agreement. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right. If you do not have this statement in here, and we're also going to talk about if you choose to give a credit, but you want to make sure that you're constantly not superseding your lease. That's why you don't do anything verbally. That's why you need to have a statement like this to say that, you still have to pay your rent and it does not change the lease agreement, the big one in there.
Excellent.
So you could take partial payments at this point as long as it's in writing. I would not make it a habit once we're done with this. This is only during a time of emergency.
Okay.
That I think is huge to say as well. What about late fees? You cannot charge any late fee, interest, or other penalty to anyone who is affected by COVID-19 for the month directly affected by the new rules. So, best practices: suspend the late fee now and apply later if the tenant cannot show evidence of being affected. This will help reduce tenant issues later on if you forget to remove the ones that should not occur. So they could go back and sue you. That could be one of the legal things that we're looking at, is they charged me for late fees. Even if you say, I'm so sorry, I forgot to remove them, but they charged me. So you have to realize if a sneaky tenant's always been sneaky, they're going to be sneaky.
Or if someone's desperate and they're looking for a way out. So certainly a $50 late fee is not worth legal problems later.
Right. So just suspend them until you can find out, can you charge them or not charge them, if it's worth your while.
Agreed.
Okay. I would like to lower rent. Do not ever, ever lower rent for any period of time. And here's why. You can accept a lesser amount, but that is going to be called a tenant credit or a concession. So you want to apply your full amount of rent first, and then put in your books, whatever books you have, minus tenant credit for, you put COVID-19, and the amount that you're crediting them. And this is why. This is not only for now, but for the future of your rental property. Should another rent stabilization bill come through, say at the end of this year, just because of all of this, and they say go back the next 12 months and now you cannot raise rent up above 5%, and you've lowered your rent and it shows on your book that you lowered your rent and did not give a credit, that just became your new rental amount.
Okay.
Yeah. So just credit or a concession. Credit and concession are considered the same thing, but it's a credit and it's not negating your lease.
Okay. Like you said, no good deed goes unpunished.
Right. My tenants didn't pay March's rent. So this is going to go back to the person who asked that question. are they able to be served and evicted? So you need to serve them. You still have to serve the 3-day notice. Serve your notices. The courts can be closed, but you'll still have that notice and it's still in effect after the fact. So serve your notice. If your court is closed for civil matters, then you cannot file, but some courts are open for filing. Just get in line as soon as possible. And what if you served a tenant a 60-day notice to terminate tenancy prior to the law? This is going to be your federal law, where you can no longer serve 60-day notices to terminate tenancies. So if you had one that was filed, a 60-day notice that was given prior to last Thursday, you're fine. If you did one on Friday, you're no longer fine because that's when the law was signed in.
This is a really good conversation to have because a few of the people watching are realtors on here, and we have clients, of course, that will want to give notice to tenants because they're allowed to, even despite the new law, the AB 1482. So what, if I'm understanding correctly, just to repeat, before the 27th, if I gave notice to somebody, just normal notice, that was okay. But now, if I want to sell a property or whatnot, I cannot give them 60 days notice?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can, if it is a federally government-backed mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, what if we're talking about someone whose job has not been affected? They are making money. They're able to pay rent. They're able to pay mortgage if they wanted to go buy a home. So I still cannot ask them to move because I want to sell my property.
Right. You have to wait till it's all over and done with.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can. There's no problem. Actually, you could depending on how the laws, that's why you have to watch the laws change.
Sure.
If the federal one changes at any point or it doesn't, so in 60 days from now, so that you're hitting that 120-day mark because you are under that government-backed mortgage, then you would want to serve your 60 days. So the 60-day ends at the same time the moratorium does. Sorry, I don't know why I jump all over that word. But I have served 60-day notices prior. Actually, one's ending at the end of next month. And that was one of their questions was, what happens now? Well, no, we served it. We served it legally. They understood it. Now, could they do pushback and say, we don't want to move out? Yes. Will that go into eviction? Yes, because we served in plenty of time.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when do you need a lawyer? Because we have brought up a lot of legal stuff here. First of all, please make sure that they are an eviction or a real estate attorney because tenant laws, it's specialized. Sure. And not all lawyers will be working with the new laws day in and day out. And I've really seen these real estate attorneys they're exhausted. I'm telling you, they get all the forms ready for everybody and it's like, change up. So it's horrible. But you want to make sure that you pick the right one, just like you would not have a heart surgeon perform your brain surgery. That's the best way of putting that.
Yeah. All
forms should be drafted by a lawyer, and there are legal firms working out there that have forms for sale. And I talk about KTS law a lot. I do know that on their website they do have forms, but you want to make sure that you are ready to act upon them. So if you know you can do a 60-day notice, download it then. You want to make sure that your form, the day you download is the day that you're going to be reacting to it or enacting it, because the law could change tomorrow, and that's another amount of money you're going to have to pay for another form.
Okay.
Okay. And you should always have a lawyer just to make sure you're not violating any fair housing laws. Remember AB 1482 did talk, well, actually there were some new fair housing laws that came into effect January 1st, and AB 1482 applies still to everything that's going on. It doesn't supersede anything. And also you will want one if you violate any of the California state of emergencies on price gouging.
And what constitutes price gouging? Is there a certain percentage of raising the rent, or what constitutes that?
Yes, if you move somebody out and then you raise the rent more than 10%, you're now price gouging. So you have to be careful on price gouging. 10% all in is what you're really looking at. We saw it a lot, especially during the fires, where people all of a sudden made people move out of their homes, and then they brought somebody in at 25 to 30% more. because they were trying to get that insurance money.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the price gouging. You just have 10%, and that goes for everything. And Ventura County for housing is till December 31st of this year, because the fires have already enacted that for us. So this state of emergency that we currently have going on is for goods and services, but real estate is till December 31st. So if you hear, oh, the state of emergency is over, not for Ventura County, and each county has their own state of emergency.
Okay, that's a good point to make. And you mentioned fair housing laws a moment ago, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
What you taught us at our office was that it used to be you could say no to Section 8 tenants, and now tenants, when they call and say, do you take Section 8, the answer cannot be no. It is make an application. We don't tell anyone no.
Yeah.
Until we see
You
the
can no longer income discriminate.
Okay.
That's a big one on that. And Section 8, if you have, so if you do have Section 8 currently, they are still paying. You do need to know that.
Okay.
But with that, just keep in mind, I've also had there's military that has come into the area that we're seeing rental applications from, and make sure that you're following what you can and cannot charge for your deposit with them. You can only do 1 month for unfurnished, 2 months for furnished.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Sure. So you say, I have a vacancy. What do you have to be extra cautious with this time? We have a lot of applicants in the area. In fact, I was talking to Jana about it earlier. We're running out of places for people to move into, but we have seen some things come through that we normally don't see. So you have to be extra cautious with applicants at this time. When you're running the background check, and you should all be running background checks, please do that. You want to find out if they're unemployed, and you can call an employer and verify employment. There are certain things you cannot ask, but you can ask, are they still employed? So there's a lot of people who became unemployed the last couple of weeks who are still saying that they are employed. And if someone needs housing before the 1st, granted it's the 30th, if they need to move in within 48 hours, that means they're trying to get out of an eviction. Keep that in mind. Usually if there's a jump like that, there's a reason why there's a jump like that. And it's never usually because it's a good tenant. They don't have enough income, but they get paid cash under the table. So they'll come to you and say, oh, but I get this cash coming in. If they have not had that verified by paying taxes on it with the IRS, that money can go away. Or I've seen where people have moved money to show, and then they pay back their friend and they really didn't have the money.
Okay.
So that's why we make sure it's verifiable by the IRS. And you always want to make sure they have enough money to pay for the groceries and their utilities, because when it comes, and their car payment, because when it comes down to it, though rent should be first, it becomes last.
Sure.
Okay, so keep that in mind. We do 3 times the amount always. That is our sweet spot. We find that when they have enough to do that, we do not have tenants that do not pay. And if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Someone's willing to pay, you know what, I'll pay you a year in advance. You got to be really careful with that, because now you can't evict them for a year and they've become a tenant for life. That we turned with, with AB 1482, we learned that. If it looks too good to be true, don't just watch out for those. And if you're wondering, hey, could this be too good to be true? Reach out to me, and I'll be glad to.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
Let's see, Rob, you have a question here. Did that get answered? I don't know if you can type in there yes or no. Not yet. Okay, so Rob's question is, what effect does the new California rent control laws have during this very odd period? I'm thinking there could possibly be a problem in price gouging potentially.
Well, the problem comes in is now you have the state of emergency on top of the AB 1482.
Yeah.
So if the home qualifies for 1482, which means that it's 3 or more unless it's a duplex and an owner does not live in the duplex.
Okay. Which I
That's
think
still at 5% plus cost of living.
Okay.
Which changes in April, and the end of April it'll change.
Okay.
Cost of living.
So that law hasn't changed. Those rules haven't changed. So we just have to be careful that we're still staying within those laws as a landlord.
Right. Remember, if you are, I've seen where a landlord has told the tenant, we are selling the property, you need to be out within 14 days. And the people moved out.
Wow.
And then they told me about it. And I said, that was against the law.
Wow.
You can't ask someone to do that. And they said, well, you know, they're very well known in the community. And I got really scared. I said, well, now you're homeless. How did that work out for you? You can't do that to folks. Just don't be that person that would do something like that. And then they raise the rents.
Yeah.
So just be careful with what you're doing. If you have any questions, always ask Jana. She'll be sure to set you straight as well. Another question that comes up, property taxes. So right now, the Governor Newsom has decided not to extend. We're saying he probably won't extend property tax payments with the late fees. And then the reason why is because it lends directly to counties, or he's letting the counties decide. And the reason why is because there's immediate distribution to hospitals, first responders, and schools. That's where that money goes to your property taxes go to.
Sure.
So that's why we're saying
when we pay property tax, then that's immediately funding a lot of budgets in our cities. So they do need that cash.
So yeah, so he's not really answering that. Now, when it comes to late fees, there are forms online for residents to request not to have to pay the late fee. They'll either be accepted or rejected, and then the late fees would be due at that point. So if you feel like that's something, but they have specific things in there. I've not really looked to see what the form has on it. I'll be honest with you on that one.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's on my list.
Yeah. And the extensions are up to the county. Right now, the only county that we're seeing has given a 90-day extension is San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't seen any other. And that was just a lookup that I did around noon today.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm always here. I'm always happy to help. This is my name, my phone number. You can reach me by email. And Jana, of course, whenever I get updated, if the state decides to change its mind again, I will send that update to Jana. She can forward it on to you so you have that information. I think that's, I'm going to stop my share. I think that's the best thing for all of you so that you have that information. I know some people do not have investment properties just locally here in Ventura. You may have them around the nation. Just figure out, and you have to look at state. That's the big thing. You have all three: state, county, city.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you, Janet. So are there any other questions that didn't get answered? Let me put on my glasses so I can see the chat room. If anybody wants to pop a question in there for me. No, it takes a second to cover. Rob wants to see your phone number again. Can we put your screen back up?
Sure.
So it's a two-step process. I have to put Janet back in the middle and then she's got to share her screen.
There you go.
Okay. And Lindsay is saying this has been fantastic and extremely informative. Thank you. Which is what we wanted. We want you guys to have support and be able to get the help you need. Okay. Any other questions popping up for us? I think that covered all of the questions I emailed you earlier today. Let me just take a quick look and see. Oh, one thing that I did hear that I don't know if you've heard yet, Janet, is on Friday we got to join in a town hall meeting with our local Realtor Association, and we had a speaker from the California Association of Realtors. And one of the things he said is that Sacramento lawmakers are discussing a potential moratorium on commercial buildings as well, because obviously if small businesses are closed, they're not making money, they're not able to pay their commercial landlords potentially. So that is up for discussion in Sacramento. So if any of you are commercial building owners, that's something to just keep your eye on and see if that does come through or not. And even if it doesn't, it's one of those things where we all appreciate good tenants who have been good to us in the past when we are landlords, and we want to work with them. Any other?
Yeah, I would say, I think a lot of people are reaching out for their SBE loans, small business loans. There's been a lot of help in different areas for commercial properties. We've seen a lot of people ask about that as well.
Yeah.
And we have not seen any law come down on that at all.
So one of the other questions that came up is one of the viewers wants to know, are you seeing a percentage drop or rise in rentals in Oxnard?
Okay, so the reason why we're called Formatic is because we have formulas and automation, and we're completely automated. You do not ever need to physically see me when it comes to being a renter with us. Everything's done by text. So our whole thing is you can text me and I send you there. We have specialized systems in place. We send out codes, a safe code to see the showing. You see the unit, we have a conversation. Once the key is back in the lockbox, at that point, you're interested in applying, you go online, you apply, it goes to our leasing department. They do all their due diligence. They send back the answer automatically. If they're approved, the money then is done all online. And they pick up the keys out of that lockbox, and I go and then I pick up the lockbox and usually introduce myself in person to the tenant. So we are able to get people within 48 hours approved, or if we need more time to get more information out, then they only have a slight channel, a slight turnabout to get the income to us, because we have back-to-back applicants on properties right now.
Okay,
so we're still busy.
That answers the question then of maybe you're seeing a rise in applications.
We are. Our company is, because I do not have to meet anyone to let them see that unit still. Yeah. And it's not, and because we won't have to do any of the social distancing, it works. Yeah. So it depends on how you're running it, but we are seeing a rise in rentals. This is still season. People are still moving in. It's spring, it's summer, it's the high season. And that has not changed. People who are bringing people in for jobs are still bringing them in.
Right. Yeah, one of the viewers is commenting that, and this is a realtor, that he had an open house in Oxnard 2 weeks ago, and 44 people showed up with over 20 applications, and the rent was for $2,400 a month. So not very low end and not particularly high end either. So obviously there's a strong rental market still.
Yeah, yeah. That has not, and we're considered essential. We've always been essential. So we're out here, we're working, we're making sure that, and you want to make sure that if you do have a property currently, know right now what maintenance you are going to defer and what maintenance you cannot defer. Okay. That's a big thing to have that list already set in motion. So if someone calls you and says, hey, my door's off the hinges, not the front door. Front doors they have to have their front door locks. They have to work. Bathrooms, if it's a 3-bedroom bathroom, three bed, 3 bath, one of them go down, they still have 2 more to use. It's not considered an emergency. You would want to get to it as soon as possible. All leaks you want to get to as soon as possible. Plumbers are still out there working. Electricians are still out there working. But if it's something that can be deferred to the end of this is when you want to defer that. Because remember, when they come in with the rent and all of a sudden there's no rent, how are you going to pay for that deferment? How are you going to pay for that fix right now? So you just have to let them know we are deferring some, we will take care of it, but we're going to be deferring that for just emergencies for right now due to social distancing and the virus.
Sure. And I can imagine if I'm a tenant, then I have something that's not urgent. Do I really want somebody in my home right now anyway? I don't.
No. And you do want to make sure that if you do have, say you use a handyman or you have your own companies, please make sure that they have to go in because it's an emergency. They are using booties and personal protection equipment.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, cool. Well, gosh, thank you so much. This was really comprehensive. Covered a lot of important questions and important topics, and hopefully have given everybody some good tools on how to navigate without stepping on toes, and hopefully have the common goal of keeping people in their houses, which is what we all want.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing me. And then thank you all for showing up today. I know things are a little crazy, and I just really appreciate you wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate your expertise, and I'm seeing a lot of thank yous over here in the chat room. So everybody is also appreciating it. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, and I highly recommend Janet if you need a property manager. She's definitely very professional and has got her systems down pat. So if you're looking for a property manager, if you already have one or don't have one, she's definitely somebody to interview and talk with and see if you'd like to work with her. I think she's fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys. I'm going to wrap up the meeting, and it is being recorded. So if you would like a copy of the meeting, let me know. And I'll put it in my Google Drive and share it so everybody can watch it again if they like to. And then I think the written documents, you just let me know, Janet, what I'm able to share, and I'll pass it on to whoever wants it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can get a copy of the Google Drive, the slideshow. We're glad to give that to you. Okay. And of course, I already emailed you the rules for state of California.
Yeah, the new law that just came into effect. Yes. Okay, excellent. We'll pass that on to everybody that wants it. Thank you. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.